For people who don't know, can you just give me a little background on the different positions you've held here, how long you've been here?
Yeah, so when I came on in 2007, I didn't have any experience in EMS or fire. And so at our training center, we actually teach people don't need to have any experience. And so we teach you how to be a firefighter. You get your certifications, firefighter 1, firefighter 2, and then also an EMT basic. And so I came in, went through recruit school, and so I was a firefighter EMT. And because I had no experience, I ended up actually in the southeast side of our city because I was like, that's where all the calls are. And I don't have any past experience, so I need to get my hands, dirty a bit and get some experience with all this knowledge. And you learn pretty quickly that 80% of the work we do is EMS. And that when we had really sick patients, the medics were the ones who were doing all the cool stuff. And so then I went to paramedic school. And once I graduated from paramedic school, went back to the southeast, because again, that's where the calls are. And so eventually promoted to lieutenant and captain, which are both company officer roles in the field. So you're still serving the community like a one-on-one. But in 2020, I got promoted to medical services officer, and I came up to here to headquarters. So I've been here for about 5 years. And it's a shift in focus, because now I'm serving the community by serving our fire department and making sure that whatever my role was up here at headquarters, because I've done medical services officer and also assistant chief of operations. My role is really just to get the crews what they need to be their best, and so it's easy in that sense, because I consider this department my family, and so I really am just every day I come in and try to do the best that I can do for my family so that they can serve the community successfully.
You brought up the levy, and obviously that levy did not pass. I spoke with you back in July, and I know you shared some of the challenges you guys were facing.
Yes.
More than 100-year-old fire stations, aging engines and vehicles.
Yes.
How are you going to address that without the funding?
That's a really great question. And so we're hoping, there's a few different strategies we're going to be looking at, but there's a lot right now going on federally at the state level, which is also going to impact the city. So we have our biennial budget, and so we kind of know what the plan is for the next 2 years. However, again, depending on some of the other things that are going on, I don't know if that's going to be affected, and if there's going to be additional cuts that are going to need to be made prior to our next biennium. And so we will kind of wait to see how all of that shakes out, and we really need to have a sustainable revenue strategy, and the city's just starting to have some of those conversations. And in an ideal circumstance, we'd get another opportunity for additional funding for facilities, fleet, and those types of things. But I don't know what that'll look like, and it's not really up to me. And so that'll be conversations that I'm going to be having alongside a whole bunch of city leadership, and that will be the ideal situation for us moving forward, so that we can address some of those things. Because ultimately, in the last 15 years, our call volumes have increased by more than 40%, and a lot of that increase is in low, non-life-threatening types of calls. And so I'm simultaneously trying to look at how maybe we can divert some of those to other entities, because as soon as we get on scene, we can't transport you to an urgent care. The only place, if you need to go somewhere, the only place we can take you is to the ER, and our ERs are overcrowded. And so I think it's going to be a lot of collaboration and communication in this community with all of the partners, and see how we can make the system better. And then we're looking at grants and other types of funding to supplant some of our oldest fleet engines that are on their last legs.
And then with the increase in calls, how much of that is attributed to the drug crisis we're seeing and homelessness?
It's hard to kind of necessarily quantify, because population growth, obviously, just in general, increases call volumes. But our unhoused community, they also are calling for diabetes and they have health issues as well, as just like anybody else in the community. But then they're exposed more to the weather, and so yes, there's probably a potential where they're calling more for those reasons, and an inability for kind of community-wide for people to access healthcare has been getting harder and harder for people, and that they really are relying on 911 in the emergency room as their primary care physicians. And I hope, in the years to come, that we can kind of fix that problem, make it slightly better so that people are getting the response that they need for the acuity of what they're calling for.
Do you know by any chance what percentage of your calls are medical compared to fire?
It's always about 80%. And sometimes it feels like, oh, this year it's going to be way higher, but every year after year, it's always around 80% is EMS.
Okay. And then kind of going to the funding, are you concerned about being impacted by any federal funding cuts or even impacts from tariffs or equipment getting more expensive?
You know, I don't really have time to worry about all the what ifs, but I do know that we have a grant submission right now to get 2 new engines, and with a lot of what's going on, I'm not sure if we're going to get those, and that was one thing that we were really kind of hoping for. But luckily for us, we are not necessarily reliant on too many grants at this point. In the past, we've had safer grants that were funding, like a large portion of our probationary firefighters. But right now, we don't have one of those. And so it's not going to impact us currently. However, departments like Seattle, they get grants, region-wide grants, for training. And then they allow us to join. So like shipboard training or tech rescue training. And so for them, they won't be able to, if they can't get those grants, then that training will go away. So there's going to be indirect costs to what the services that we can provide potentially.
And that grant you guys applied for the 2 engines, that was a federal grant?
Yeah, an AFG grant, yeah.
Gotcha. And then talking about response times, I know that you have said in the past that they were below where they should be, below the standard.
Well, they're above. They're above, yeah, the standard is, yeah, where the standard is, we're
or like
almost,
the time.
yeah,
Okay.
we're almost double that.
Yes.
And, really, like the concept that I was talking to you about of trying to divert some of the low acuity calls to a different type of response package, whether that's housed in the fire department or if that's a collaboration with the local ERs or, healthcare systems. If we can start diverting those, then if they get on scene and they say, hey, this person does need to go to the ER, they can always call us, but that we wouldn't be the tip of the spear. And then that would allow us to be more ready for true emergencies when they do occur. And some of that, and really, one of my biggest worries is the fact that as we get busier and busier, that there's less and less time, not only for our personnel to recover, but also for them to train together. And we have a certain amount of training that's mandatory for them to get certifications that they need to continue to serve in the roles they're serving in. But there's so much more officer development and just crew continuity type of going out to drill. And we just really don't, in our system that's so busy, we really can't, it's really hard to pull people out of service to do that necessary work so that we can provide the best service to the community. And so that would be the, getting the community member the right resource for their what their emergency is or their perceived emergency is, but also allowing our crews to have more training and be better serve this community.
And then with the response times, I mean, is there one solution to decreasing the amount of time it takes for firefighters to get to a call? Is it more funding? Is it more staffing? Or is there not one solution?
Yeah, so I mean, there's not one solution, and just if we told every engine right now, you're going to go to your station and sit there. There's a large portion of our district that we just don't have a fire station that can reach. If there was no traffic and they were going to just leave in the middle of the night and everybody was available, they can't reach certain sections. And so, in a perfect world, we would see that and we would be able to place fire stations so that we had response rigs that had complete coverage. So that's one thing, but that's a long-term goal. Short-term goal is just decreasing the amount of calls that are going on. Last year, for the first time ever, Engine 1 that's down here ran 5,000 calls. We have never, no unit has ever run 5,000 calls, which means they're only taking probably 60% of the time, the calls that are in their district, which means they're relying on Engine 2 coming from a distance, Engine 4 coming from a distance, and that all adds to the increased response time. And so, if it turns out to be a non-life-threatening issue, a 7-8 minute response doesn't matter. But when somebody is in need of CPR or a house is burning, those are the times that those minutes really, really matter. And so that's top of mind for me.
Yeah. And then talking about, obviously, if these firefighters and crews are so busy, is there anything TFD is doing to focus on helping them and their mental health?
Yeah, well, we do have a peer support team, and many people had seen 4 years ago, 3 years ago, we were kind of bolstering that team, and we ended up creating a movie that's on YouTube called The Call We Carry, and that really kind of spurred a change in how people looked at mental health, because for a long, long time there was a stigma if you said that call really bothered me, I think I need to go home, and firefighters are don't get paid enough ever for what they end up, how that impacts their, their mental health and their physical health and their relationships. And so that the culture is now that that we really encourage people, as soon as you don't have to make it official. You can, that we're trying to find routes where they can reach out to somebody they trust, and we can get them the resources they need. And we also have 2 mental health professionals that are on staff with us, and so they come in and they attend diffusings and debriefings after, because there's certain types of calls that this is a pretty big call, and this would affect a lot of people. But sometimes it's just a call that, for you or I, it was just a call. But for maybe one of our crew members, that person reminded them a lot of their grandfather, and it starts bringing up a lot of things, right? And so regardless of what it is, we want to make sure that we have the resources that they need, and we are very supportive with that.
Yeah, it seems like you guys already have a lot of good stuff in place that probably you're just hoping to continue and build on.
Exactly.
And then I guess just a little bit more about your background, going into where you grew up, how you ended up in Washington, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town named Lahaina in Maui, and my parents are pastors, and I have a huge extended family, as you probably saw on Tuesday. And growing up in a nurturing and I would say just supportive atmosphere like that, it really gives you a feeling of being part of something bigger. And I usually use the term like a village mentality, because you learn values like service, respect, integrity, tradition, that what's best for the group is a priority, and so servant leadership is kind of that's all I know, and that any relationships that you're building, you lean into them because you assume that this person's going to be part of your circle for a lifetime. Now, not everybody is, but if you approach every relationship you have like that, then more people seem to stay in your circle longer. And so that's kind of who I am, and that's kind of the lens that I see life through. And so I came up to go to University of Washington and got my degree there. And I was actually I wanted to go into medicine. But I was a little burnt out with schooling at the time, and so I decided to take some time off, and one thing led to another. And I applied for the fire department, and I could not be happier because, like I mentioned, I come from a family, of feeling like you're part of something bigger. And when I joined this department, I joined a family business, and our family business is service, which is right up my alley. We serve and protect this community. And so now, sitting in the seat I'm in, I just feel like I'm kind of the caretaker of our family business. And our family business started in 1880, and it's going to go long past when I'm gone. But what I can do right now is making sure that our department is meeting the mission and the commitments that we're making to this community, and that I'm making decisions that are going to set up future generations for my family business in a successful trajectory.
Did you ever imagine when you first started here that you'd be sitting in the chief's office?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I didn't even think I'd end up at headquarters. But it's just one of those things that when you care about the people who are around you, and you care about what you're doing, I've always just tried to be the best that I could at every and things have just kind of aligned, timing wise, and any door that opens, and I think, yeah, I'll do that. It's probably going to make me better. I just took promotions, and so I would never, no, I would have never thought I could have easily been like a company officer, for the rest of my career, and been absolutely happy. And that's what I tell a lot of people in the fire department, is I was like, find the role that makes you happy and just do it. Just stay there. There's no need to put yourself into positions that just don't speak to who you are and what works for you. And for me, I've always just been I was the oldest sibling, and I kind of did the jobs that nobody else was stepping up to do. And so in this role, like, for lack of better examples, if we did have a family business and your older cousin was supposed to take on the family business, but then they decided that that wasn't for them, I was next up. So I am stepping into this role, but I am dedicated. I love my department. I love every single person that's in it, and I love what we do. And I grew up in Lahaina, and I've been on the fire department for 18 years. And as I was kind of going through interview prep in the last couple weeks, I realized, I was like, I've actually been serving this community and been in this community longer than where I grew up, which is it's an interesting, thing to put into perspective of that. Although I grew up, from a kid, I've really come into my own in this community, and I'm Tacoma Fire Department through and through. I want to do the best I can, and then pass it off to the next generation.
That's awesome. And I just have two more questions for you. One, with you obviously being a female fire chief right now, we have an interim female police chief and a female mayor. I mean, how does that feel for you to have, I guess, be in this position as a woman, which a lot of times it is men in these positions? How does that feel for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's really great having so much female leadership in the city. But coming on to the Tacoma Fire Department, we've always been kind of a trendsetter. When, like right now, the average, I think, percentage nationwide is less than 5% of females in the fire service. We're at 17%. We had our first female fire chief in 2000. So when I came on, we had already had a history of female leadership. And so where in other departments it might be very, very hard for somebody to get to where I'm at, all I did is keep my head down and try to do the best I can for my department and be the best I could at every level. And here I am. So I'm excited, and I haven't gotten too much time with Patty yet, but I look forward to collaborating with her a lot, because us and the police department work all the time together. And then I know the mayor is terming out, so we'll be sending her off with hopefully a good farewell at the end of the year.
Yeah. And then I guess my last question, what are your main goals and plans in this position? If you had to say maybe your top 3 goals, what would they be?
So, safety for for my crews, and then also for the community, are always top of mind. And I mentioned some of those things that that there's lots of things that go into that. That's decreasing response times. That's getting more training. That's getting officer development. And then also I would love to be able to have more community focused prevention, fire prevention, and education. All of those are kind of attached to financial constraints. And so really right now, Colt, I'm trying to just, my goal is to encourage all of everybody who works for Tacoma Fire Department to be as proud and as loyal to our department as I am, because that doesn't cost any money. So that I'm going to be starting a module of series of history of the Tacoma Fire Department, because we've hired half of our department in the last 5 years since I've been at headquarters. And so I think that they don't understand what they're part of, and that we're part of this huge, rich history of thousands of firefighters that came before us. And so those are things, I'm trying to do things that don't have a price tag, just to kind of build up our culture and our pride in what we do and who we are and the people that we serve.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to add that I didn't touch on?
No, I want to say that I'm 100% dedicated to my department, but also I want the community to know that you have excellent people, firefighters, men and women who will be there when you need us, and that are 100% dedicated to the mission that we have, which is to serve and protect you.